Your wife is seeing my husband. Those 8 words landed on my table like a dropped brick, heavy and sudden. I looked up from my coffee and saw a woman I had never met sitting across from me in a vinyl diner booth on Fax Avenue in Denver. She said it with the calm voice of someone who had already cried all her tears and was done pretending life was normal. My name is Gabriel, but most people call me Gabe. I was 33 years old then. I worked as a project coordinator for Stone Pine Holdings, a commercial construction company that lived and died on schedules, budgets, and never-ending emails. I had been married to my wife Megan for 6 years. We lived in a neat townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where people waved politely and pretended they did not hear arguments through the walls. That morning, I believed I was just having breakfast alone because Megan had an early meeting. Now a stranger was telling me my marriage was a lie. At first I could not move. My hand stayed wrapped around my mug. I could feel the heat against my palm, but my brain was starting to float like my body wanted to escape the moment. "Excuse me," I managed to say. The woman studied me, not cruelly but carefully, like she was checking if I was the kind of man who would explode. She was striking in a way that made you notice her even if you tried not to. Dark hair, green eyes, sharp cheekbones, a fitted gray blazer that looked expensive but not flashy, earrings that caught the morning light every time she shifted her head. She did not smile. "You are Gabriel," she said, and she said it like she already knew the answer. "I am Audrey." Then she repeated it, slower, like she was giving me time to catch up. "Your wife Megan has been sleeping with my husband Jason for the past 4 months. For months." My chest tightened. I put my cup down very gently, because suddenly I did not trust my hands. Around us, the diner was still the diner. Plates clinked. Someone laughed near the counter. A server called out an order. The smell of bacon and toast hung in the air. But in my head, everything went quiet. "How do you know who I am?" I asked. Audrey leaned back a little, crossing her arms. The movement made it clear she was not nervous. If anything, she looked like she was the one holding the power in the room. "I followed Jason one night," she said. "I saw him meet your wife at a hotel off Spear Boulevard. I got curious, started digging, figured out who she was, figured out who you were. It was not hard. I stared at her. My brain tried to protect me by offering excuses. Maybe she had the wrong person. Maybe Megan was meeting a client. Maybe the hotel was for work. Maybe this woman was unstable. Maybe I was about to become part of some strange scam. But a quieter voice inside me, the one I had been ignoring for weeks, whispered something that hurt more than anything Audrey said. "You already suspected. The signs had been there. I just kept pushing them away like papers on a messy desk, thinking I would deal with them later." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Audrey looked past my shoulder for a second, like she was watching the world continue while hers fell apart. Then she looked back at me. "Because I am done pretending," she said. "Jason thinks I do not know. Your wife probably thinks you do not know either. You deserve the truth the same as me." I swallowed. My throat felt dry. Part of me wanted to defend Megan, to call my wife right now and demand she explain herself, to say Audrey was lying and I would prove it. I wanted the comfort of the old story, the story where my marriage was shaky but still real. Then Audrey reached in her purse and pulled out her phone. She unlocked it and slid it across the table toward me. On the screen was a photo. Megan stood outside a parking garage, leaning into a man I did not recognize. His hand rested on her lower back in a way that was not casual. Her head was tilted toward him, and she was laughing, not the polite laugh she used at office parties, but the real laugh that used to be mine. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I was falling. "That is Jason," Audrey said. I stared at the photo until my eyes started to burn. I did not blink. I did not speak. My brain took the image and tried to crush it down into something smaller, something I could handle. But it stayed the same size. It stayed sharp. I pushed the phone back toward her slowly. "I'm sorry," I said, and I did not even know who I was apologizing to. Her, myself, the version of my life I thought I had. Audrey watched me for a moment. Then, for the first time, her expression shifted. It was not kindness. It was not pity. It was something like recognition. Like she had been sitting in the same kind of pain and knew exactly what it tasted like. "Do not be sorry yet," she said. "The day is not over." I looked up confused. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "Forget her," she said. "Go out with me tonight." I blinked, sure I misheard. "What did you say?" She did not hesitate. "You heard me. Meet me tonight. One night. No pretending. No acting polite. No listening to people who do not respect us. Just one night where we do something for ourselves." My brain screamed that this was reckless, that it was a mistake, that was weird, and yet I felt something else too. Relief. Not relief that Megan cheated. Nothing could make that feel good. But relief that someone had spoken the truth out loud. Relief that I was not crazy for feeling the distance in my own home. Relief that the fog had a name. I should have said no. The adult thing would have been to go home, confront Megan, call a lawyer, start building a plan. I should have done all of that first. Instead, I heard myself say yes. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was anger hiding under shock. Maybe it was the way Audrey looked at me like I still mattered. Audrey's mouth curved into a small, satisfied smile. "Good," she said. "Velvet room on Lammer Street. 8 o'clock. Then she stood up, dropped a $10 bill on the table like she owned the place, and walked out without looking back. I stayed in the booth for a long time after she left. I stared at the empty seat across from me, as if she might reappear and tell me this was all a prank. But my phone was still in my hand, and the photo Audrey showed me was burned into my mind. When I finally stood up, I did not drive to work. I called my office and told them I was sick. My voice sounded steady, which surprised me. I almost never called in sick, not because I loved work, but because I liked control. Calling in sick felt like losing control. But I had already lost control. I just did not realize it until that morning. I drove around Denver for hours. No destination. Just moving, like if I kept driving the truth might not catch up to me. I passed downtown buildings I had been inside 100 times. I passed parks where Megan and I used to walk. I passed restaurants where we celebrated anniversaries. Everything looked the same, and that made it worse. Because it meant the world did not care. By the time I got home, Megan had already left. Her car was gone. The house was silent, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a stage after the actors leave, when you realize the set is just wood and paint. I walked through the room slowly. Our wedding photo hung in the hallway. Megan and I smiling so hard our faces hurt. I looked at it like it belonged to someone else. In the living room, there was a throw blanket Megan loved. The kitchen had the coffee machine I bought her last Christmas. The bedroom had the same white comforter we picked out together when we moved in. It all looked normal, but now normal felt fake. I found myself standing in front of Megan's closet. I did not know why. I was not proud of what I was about to do. I did not want to become the kind of husband who searches drawers and boxes. But I needed to know if Audrey was telling the truth, even though my gut already knew. On the top shelf was a shoebox. It looked ordinary, the kind of thing people keep old receipts in. I pulled it down and opened it. Inside were hotel receipts. Not one, several. Places I had never been. Dates that matched nights Megan said she was working late or traveling for a conference. There was also a small card. Handwritten. The paper smelled faintly like perfume. It said, "Counting the days until I see you again." No name, just the letter J. My hand started to shake. Not wildly, but enough that I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. For months, Audrey said. But the box in my hands made me wonder if it was longer. People rarely begin cheating at full speed. They usually start with smaller lies first. I put the card back. I put the receipts back. I closed the box and returned it to the shelf. I did not take a photo. I did not send it to anyone. Not yet. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall until my breathing slowed. Then I stood up and got ready for my date with Audrey. The strangest part was that I did not feel guilty. I expected guilt to hit me like a wave. I expected to feel like I was betraying my vows. But my vows had already been broken. Not by me. And something inside me, something tired and honest, said that I was allowed to stop acting like the only person responsible for saving our marriage. At 7:30, I got in my car and drove downtown. Rain had fallen earlier, and the city lights reflected off the wet pavement like smeared gold. I parked a block away from Velvet Room and walked the rest of the way, hands in my pockets, heart pounding like I was walking into a fight. Audrey was waiting outside. She had changed since the diner. In the morning, she looked like a businesswoman with a mission. Now, she looked like someone who planned to step back into her own life. She wore a black dress and a light jacket. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders. She looked at me and raised her eyebrows like she was checking if I would actually show. "You came," she said. "I did," I said, and my voice sounded rougher than I wanted. "Did you think I would not?" She shrugged. "I thought there was a chance you would do the noble thing. Go home, confront her, cry, scream, have the big dramatic scene." She tilted her head. "I'm glad you did not." We went inside. Velvet Room was dim and warm, with jazz playing softly and candles on the tables. It smelled like citrus and smoke and expensive cologne. Audrey chose a booth in the back corner away from the crowd. I slid into the seat across from her. It was strange to sit across from the woman who just blew up my life. And yet, in that moment, she felt like the only person in the city who understood what my day had been. A waiter came over. Audrey ordered something neat and strong. I ordered whiskey, also neat because I did not trust myself to handle something sweet. When the drink arrived, I took a long sip. The warmth hit my chest and spread slowly. "So what is this?" I asked. "Revenge." Audrey considered it. "Maybe partly," she said. "But not only that." She traced a finger around the rim of her glass. Not flirting, just thinking. "I think I wanted to feel something real," she said. "Something that is not pretending. I'm tired of pretending." I understood that more than I wanted to admit. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About Jason and Megan." 3 weeks, Audrey said. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. A hotel room paid in cash. He told me it was a business expense that got mixed up. I wanted to believe him, but I did not. She gave a small, humorless laugh. So I hired a private investigator. I needed proof. I needed facts, not feelings. The investigator followed him, got photos, track patterns. "That's how I found your wife. And then I found you. You could have sent me an anonymous message," I said. "I could have," Audrey said. "But I wanted to look you in the eye. I wanted to see if you were real." She leaned forward slightly. "Also, I wanted to see what kind of man you were." "What kind of man did you think I was?" I asked. She looked at me with an expression I could not fully read. "A decent one," she said. "The kind who still tries even when it is not being returned. The kind who probably blames himself for things he did not cause." That made my throat tighten. Because she was right. We talked for hours. We talked about Megan and Jason, yes, but we also talked about us because betrayal has a way of forcing you to look at your own life with new eyes. I told her how I met Megan. It was a rooftop patio at a mutual friend's birthday party. Megan was 25, bright, confident, quick with jokes. I was 25, hungry to prove myself at Stone Pine, proud of my first real job. We talked until the party ended. We exchanged numbers. We texted for days. We went on a first date that turned into a second date, that turned into a relationship, that moved fast because we both liked the feeling of being wanted. Within a year, we were engaged. Within 2, we were married. The early years were good. We traveled when we could afford it. We built routines. We cooked dinners together. We had inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. We talked about having kids someday, not immediately, but someday. We talked about a bigger house. We talked about the kind of life we thought we were building. Then, slowly, the shift started. It was not one big event. It was 100 small ones. Megan got promoted and started traveling more. I got passed over for management position and came home frustrated more often. We both got tired. We both got busy. But instead of leaning toward each other, we leaned away. She became distant. Not cold exactly, but absent. Even when she was in the room, her mind was somewhere else. Her phone buzzed, and she would glance at it and smile at something I could not see. When I asked if something was wrong, she said she was stressed. Work was heavy. She needed time. I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful. Audrey listened without interrupting. That was one of the first things that felt different about her. Megan used to listen to me once. Lately, she listened like she was waiting for me to stop speaking. Audrey asked questions that were sharp and honest. When did the late night start? When did she stop wanting to go out? When did the phone become private? I answered each one and realized, in real time, how long I had been ignoring the truth. Audrey told me about her marriage, too. She had been married to Jason for 8 years. They had a daughter named Ellie who was 5. She said Ellie was the reason she did not leave immediately when she found out about the cheating. She wanted everything in order first. Finances, custody, housing. She wanted to protect her child from chaos. But she also admitted something else. I am scared, she said quietly. Not of being alone, but of admitting I wasted 8 years on someone who did not love me the way I thought he did. That line hit me hard because it matched something inside me. I did not want to admit my marriage was dying because that meant I failed at something I promised to protect. At some point, I realized I had not thought about Megan for almost an hour. That felt impossible, but it was true. Audrey, and I kept talking until the waiter brought the check. Audrey paid before I could reach for my wallet. I did not fight her on it. Fighting her would have felt like pretending the old rules still applied. We left Velvet Room around 11. The air outside was cool. Downtown Denver at night has a quiet energy, like the city is still awake but softer. We walked past closed storefronts and glowing windows, our footsteps echoing on the sidewalk. I felt strange, like I was floating. The day started with a stranger destroying my marriage, and now I was walking beside her through the city like we had known each other for years. At some point, Audrey asked me a question that made me stop. When did you stop being happy? She asked. I cannot answer right away. I wanted to be honest, not dramatic. I do not think it was one moment, I said finally. It was gradual, like the temperature dropping so slowly you do not notice until you are freezing. Audrey nodded slowly. That is exactly how it was for me too, she said. Jason and I used to be good together, or at least I thought we were. But somewhere along the way, I became a convenience instead of a partner. I managed the house. I managed Ellie. I kept things running. And he just took it. She paused and looked down at the sidewalk. The worst part is he would apologize sometimes, she said. He would promise to do better. Things would improve for a few weeks. And it would go right back. That hope followed by disappointment wore me down. I thought about Megan. The dates she canceled because she was tired. The dinners where she stared at her phone. The way she turned her phone face down. The way she laughed more at other people's jokes than mine. I told Audrey the truth. I keep asking myself what I did wrong, I said. What I could have done differently. Audrey stopped walking and turned to face me. You did not do anything wrong, she said firmly. Neither did I. They made choices. Bad ones. And we are the ones dealing with the consequences. She was right, but letting go of self-blame is not something you do in one sentence. Still, hearing it from her helped. We ended up at a late-night diner near Union Station. It felt like a strange, full circle. This morning, I sat in a diner booth as a stranger told me my life was a lie. Now I sat in another diner booth with that stranger, eating pie at 1 in the morning like we were two people trying to stitch themselves back together. We ordered coffee. We ordered pie. We talked until almost 2. Audrey told me more about Ellie. About how Ellie loved pigeons and always wanted to chase them in the park. About how Ellie asked 1,000 questions and laughed with her whole body. I told Audrey I admired how clearly she cared about her child. How she thought about Ellie in every decision. Audrey looked at me, and something softened in her eyes. You do not try to fix things for me, she said. You do not tell me everything will be okay. You do not tell me I should forgive him. You just listen. Listening felt easy with her. It felt like the right thing. By the time we left the diner, the streets were nearly empty. I walked her to her car, parked a few blocks away. We stood under a streetlight, yellow glow on wet pavement. Both of us reluctant to end the night. This is unexpected, Audrey said. Which part? I asked. All of it, she said, and she laughed, not bitter this time. I woke up planning to blow up my life and yours. I did not expect to actually like you. I did not expect to like you either, I said, and it was true. She stepped closer. So what do we do about that? I looked at her, trying to be careful. This was a woman I met less than 24 hours ago. She had her own pain. She had a child. She had a life that was already complicated. But there was something in her that felt alive. Honest. Direct. Real. I think we see where it goes, I said. Slowly. Carefully. We do not pretend. We do not rush. We just keep showing up and see what is real. Audrey's smile was small but genuine. That is what I was hoping you would say, she said. Then she kissed me. It was soft, deliberate, not desperate. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Call me tomorrow, she said, after you deal with things at home. I will, I said. She got in her car and drove away. I stood there for a moment, watching her taillights disappear around the corner. Then I walked back to my car and drove home. Megan was asleep when I got there. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and looked at her for a long time. She was turned toward the window, hair spread on the pillow, face relaxed in sleep. The woman I married. The woman I loved. The woman who had chosen someone else. I expected anger. I expected heartbreak. I expected to collapse. Instead, I felt something I did not expect. Done. Not cruel. Not cold. Just finished. The next morning, I waited until she woke up. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee and the calmest face I could manage. When she walked in, she looked surprised to see me home. Hey, she said like nothing was wrong. I thought you'd work early. I took a slow breath. I know, I said. Her expression changed instantly. Not guilt yet. First confusion. Then a flicker of fear. Know what? She asked. I know about you and Jason, I said. The color drained from her face. She grabbed the edge of the counter like she needed it to steady herself. Gabriel, I can explain, she started. Do not, I said. The word came out sharper than I intended, but I did not take it back. I do not need an explanation, I said. I need a divorce. Megan's eyes filled with tears quickly. She moved fast into crying, like she hoped the emotion would turn my decision into a discussion. She said it was a mistake. She said it meant nothing. She said she still loved me. She said she was confused. She said she felt lonely when I was busy. She said I had changed. She said she had changed. Every sentence sounded like something she had practiced in her head. Or maybe she was improvising, trying to find the right story that would soften me. But the problem was simple. I had heard enough lies. I told her I was leaving for a while. I packed a bag and walked out. She followed me to the door, crying, asking me to talk, asking me to calm down, asking me to think. But I was calm. That was the point. I was finally calm because the pretending was over. I stayed in a small hotel that first week. It was quiet and impersonal, but it was mine. There was no tension, no guessing, no watching Megan turn her phone face down, no waiting for affection that never came. I called a lawyer my coworker recommended. I started the divorce process. Audrey and I met for coffee 3 days after that first night. I expected it to feel awkward. It did not. It felt easy, which surprised me. Not easy like nothing hurt, but easy like we did not have to perform. We talked. Then we had dinner. Then we took a walk through City Park on a Sunday afternoon, while Ellie chased pigeons and laughed like only kids can. Audrey introduced me as a friend, not as anything more. She did not rush Ellie into accepting me. She was careful, the kind of careful that comes from real love. I respected that. Ellie looked at me with curious eyes and asked if I liked cartoons. I told her I did. She asked if I could run fast. I told her I could run medium fast. She laughed like that was hilarious and ran off again. I watched Audrey's face while she watched her daughter. Even with everything she was going through, she looked steady when Ellie was near. Like her heart had a clear purpose. I found myself admiring her, not just wanting her. One evening, Audrey and I sat on her back porch after Ellie went to bed. The sky was orange and pink over the city. We did not talk much. We just sat with 2 drinks and the soft sound of neighborhood life. A dog barked somewhere. A car passed. Wind moved through leaves. Thank you, I just said finally. Audrey turned her head. For what? For telling me the truth, I said. You could have stayed silent. You could have sent a message and walked away. You could have protected yourself and not cared about me. But you told me. Face to face. Audrey leaned her head against my shoulder. You deserve the truth, she said. We both did. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Megan fought it at first. Not because she truly believed she was right, but because she hated losing control. She tried to argue about assets, about timelines, about who did what. But the evidence of the affair was clear, and her lawyer eventually convinced her to stop turning it into a war she could not win. The last time I saw Megan was at the courthouse after the judge signed the papers. She looked different, tired, thinner. The confidence I once admired had turned into something hollow. She looked at me, then glanced past me like she expected Audrey to appear and confirm her worst fear. I hope you're happy with her, Megan said. The words were bitter, but her voice was flat. I did not enjoy hurting her, but I also did not owe her comfort anymore. I am, I said. Megan flinched like I slapped her. I think she expected me to fall apart when she left. She expected me to beg, to prove she still had power over me. But I had moved on, and that truth hit her harder than any argument ever could. Jason did not do well either. Audrey filed for divorce the same week I did. Jason tried to reconcile. He showed up with flowers and apologies. He promised therapy. He promised change. He promised he would do anything. But Audrey had already made her decision. She had done what I had done. She had reached the done place. The custody arrangement gave Audrey primary care of Ellie. Jason got weekends. Audrey hated that part, not because she wanted Jason in her life, but because she wanted Ellie to have stability. She never spoke badly about Jason in front of Ellie. She kept her anger private. That kind of discipline impressed me. Word about the affair spread in their circle. Denver is a big city, but certain professional circles are small. Jason lost a promotion he was counting on. Some friends stopped inviting him to things. People who once laughed at his jokes started keeping distance. Megan's job suffered too. Her company had strict rules about workplace behavior, and once rumors started, they started digging. And when they dug, they found enough to make her position uncomfortable. Megan resigned before they could fire her. It was strange to watch it happen from a distance. I did not celebrate it. I did not feel like I won. I felt like reality finally caught up to their choices. A year after that morning in the diner, Audrey and I moved in together. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood, with a backyard for Ellie to play in. Not fancy, not perfect, but it was warm. It felt honest. Some nights, Audrey and I sat on the porch after Ellie went to bed, talking about everything and nothing. Other nights, we did not talk at all. We just sat, comfortable in silence. And I realized that real peace often looks boring to people who are addicted to drama. But boring in the best way. The calm way. The safe way. Ellie started calling me Gabe at first. Then, one day, months later, she asked a question that made my throat tighten. Can you be my other dad? She asked like it was the most natural thing in the world. I looked at Audrey. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded slightly, giving me permission without forcing anything. I turned back to Ellie. Yeah, I said. I would like that. Ellie smiled, so hard her cheeks puffed up, then ran off like she had somewhere important to be. After that, something changed in me. I stopped feeling like a man whose life got stolen. I started feeling like a man building something new. Work improved too. I finally got the promotion I was passed over for before. The extra responsibility suited me. Maybe because I was no longer draining all my energy trying to save a marriage alone. One evening, Audrey found me standing at the kitchen window, watching the sunset paint the mountains in soft color. What are you thinking about? She asked. I turned and looked at her. I'm thinking about how strange life is, I said. How the worst day of my life turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Audrey walked up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. Sometimes the door you do not want to open is the one that leads you home, she said. I leaned back into her, feeling her warmth, feeling the quiet certainty in my chest. A year ago, I was trapped in a marriage that had already ended. I was just too afraid to admit it. Now I had someone who saw me, who chose me, who did not treat me like a piece of furniture in her life. And I understood something I wish I learned earlier. Love is not just words or history or a ring. Love is attention. Love is honesty. Love is choosing each other over and over, especially when it is not convenient. Megan and Jason made their choices. Audrey and I made ours. And as strange as it still felt sometimes, I could finally say it out loud without shame. The day I let go was the day I finally started to live.